Hi there. I hope everyone's well today. There's a lot to talk about in these videos. Some of the most important things to do with a person who has a mental illness is their family. When I got out of the hospital about 18 years ago, and I had been in for 6 months, and it was a very long and difficult stay for me. One of the things that most helped me recover was simply the support of my dad. He's an incredible man, 82 years old now, and he's given up driving, but at the time, 18 years ago, he had a car, and he would take the time and trouble to go all the way to my place and pick me up, and then we would go to the River Valley. I don't know if any of you have seen the Edmonton River Valley, but it's extremely beautiful. But we'd go to the River Valley and we'd spend some time together walking and just having that exercise, that fresh air, and that connection with someone who cared, you know. It was something extremely beneficial and something I hope everybody has. If you haven't got, you know, of course, a parent to do that sort of thing with, try and find somebody. Find somebody to partner up with. There can even be walking clubs. Now, personally, I wouldn't recommend walking in a mall because I think that makes everything kind of stuffy. But there are people who walk in malls and they stay in shape and they meet people and they get out and they get, you know, their senses stimulated, so to speak, in the mall. It can be just as beneficial as anything. I still continue to walk. I consider it a very important part of my recovery. I was told a long time ago by a psychologist that physical health is such an important part of who we are. And then I was told also by an Air Force 5BX plan. It was an old fitness routine that was popular when I was younger. I was told by that walking is the best exercise you can do. I've sort of built my way up since leaving the hospital. I remember there was very little time to go to the gym or work out or go swimming, even though all those facilities were available at the hospital. And I got quite badly out of shape. And I wanted to go back to work at some point. I wanted to do some things, travel, whatever. And none of them would be possible if I was just such a couch potato or whatever you want to call it, that I didn't do any vigorous activity. So I started out just going to the pool, and I wouldn't even swim laps. I just sort of tread water in the deep end and maybe do a few strokes of a swim thing here and there. And it was good for me. And as I was able to build myself up, I started lifting weights. And I didn't do a lot of weightlifting, but what I did was, as I had more endurance and stamina, I started to go on walks to the pool instead of taking the bus. But you know, the most important thing when I look back at the time to my recovery was the time I spent with my dad. Having a family member is so important, and I encourage people who have family members who care to do as much as you can with them and truly appreciate them and treat them well. Looking back, I can recall some pretty awful things I did. There was one night I was just in a horrible black mood. I was in the hospital and I just said, when my parents get here, just tell them I don't want to see them. And I was 18, so there was nothing they could do. They had to tell them, and my parents had to follow that. They didn't have to come and get me. But that one night, I just remember being so alone and so angry and guilty and all these things. And it must have really hurt my parents. You know, not only that they had to drive all that way to come and visit, but that I treated them like that. And it just wasn't me. That's what I really think recovery from a mental illness is all about, is getting back to who you really are. I'm so lucky because I've got my writing career and I'm a little bit known from doing my writing in classes and different things. A couple of years ago I was something called the Library Spotlight Writer, and so I had to run some support groups and make a video and do different things to promote the library. It was a wonderful opportunity, and luckily when I was in the hospital, I was in a situation when I went in February to the Grey Nuns Hospital here in Edmonton. Very nice hospital, very well kept, extremely well you're extremely well cared for in this place. But my doctor didn't know me, and he said, we want to get you back to normal, but we don't know what normal is. And so right there, I took out my cell phone and I called up the video I had made for the library, and I was able to show him, this is me. I write, I take pictures, I do these things, I try to help others, and the whole course of my treatment changed from then on. I think they would have kept me there a fair bit longer if I hadn't been able to show them something like that. But I encourage everyone to try and get active. I don't know about the situation of the Schizophrenia Society in the United States, but I know in Canada the Schizophrenia Society is a pretty big entity. Alone here in Alberta we have 4 or 5 branch offices, buildings where we house people who have schizophrenia. There's even scholarships. If anyone in Alberta wants to find out about it, contact the Schizophrenia Society. If you have a mental illness like schizophrenia, they will give you a scholarship of, I think, up to $2,000 just to study when you're young, and it's beautiful. It's brilliant. So the thing is, the Schizophrenia Society has so much more supports, though. Like, they have art classes, they have support groups for seniors. Some of the other things they have is, well, they have groups, informational and support groups for families of people with mental illness, because it's quite often said schizophrenia doesn't just affect the sufferer, it affects the family. And so these opportunities are available as much as possible in branch and online. And it's just, I've just found so much good with it. I started going to some groups and I learned a little bit about the different recovery courses they offer. And I was fortunate enough to be asked to lead the group a couple of times, and it felt great. And I was able to use my experience and my intelligence to help others to formulate a recovery plan and to do different things like that. And you know, it's just, I used to do presentations, well, I still do presentations, but I used to do presentations with a psychiatrist. And it was really amazing because it's a long time. Like, it can be up 5 years, it can be almost 10 years. But the actual hope of you getting on your feet again, if you have an illness like schizophrenia, is very, very good. You know, there's so much medications coming out, there's so many different things being allocated, and a lot of progress is being made. It's not easy, though, to have an illness like schizophrenia because there's so much stigma attached. You know, you turn on the TV and you see a crime show and they talk about, you know, the horrible murder of the person with schizophrenia. And then sometimes with the media, they come out and they sensationalize things and they gloss over facts that prove that that this is something that was a result not of the person who had the illness, but of the people who were treating him. And so there was an incident with a Greyhound bus. A man named Vince Lee had schizophrenia, and he had actually taken someone's head off. He was that gone. Now the thing is that they didn't say that he had tried to get his medication and it was refused. They didn't say he had tried to go to hospital and he was refused. They just basically sensationalized the horror of this murder. I remember being asked how many people are violent when they have schizophrenia, and it's actually the number of 1 in 100, which is the same number as the general population. I always like to say that a person with schizophrenia is no more violent than the average hockey player, and really it's the truth. But I'm sure there are hockey players out there who have schizophrenia. I wanted to just wrap up by talking quickly about where I went when I left the hospital. There was 2 places. One was a group home, and it was a negative experience. It was a woman who, it seemed she just wanted to feel power over her patients, you know, and have someone pay her mortgage every month. And so I was sent there, and I was only there for about 3 months. But after that, I was sent to a group home called Meadows Place, and it was wonderful, and the people there were wonderful. Something about going into a group home and make sure that you have references that this is going to be a good group home. something about it is very beneficial to a person with an illness because everyone else also has an illness, and the people there are trained to deal with people who have illnesses. And so it can be a very positive effect. If there's a waiting list, get your name in as soon as you can. Try and get into subsidized housing. That's the situation I'm in right now. And really just never give up on yourself. And if you're a family member watching this, I strongly recommend to get out there and be an advocate, because there's just so much stigma and negativity surrounding mental illness that really doesn't have to be. Thank you very much for watching my video. I will have more soon, and if I don't see you again, this is I believe December 20th, December 20th, 2019, and I wanted to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Thanks.